What is flawed with leaders today?
Leadership is directly connected to initiation. So an uninitiated leader is self-centered. They're doing what they're doing for their own advancement, gratification, whatever that is. Leaders are the head of culture before they are anything else. Culture is the combination of all the beliefs we have and the behaviors we express. It's our ethos. It's also our character and our destiny. It is the big catch-all driver of human functioning. So successful cultures are like successful operating systems on a computer. Everything works and it's fast and it's awesome. And dysfunctional cultures, they create dysfunctional people and projects, and the leaders are the people who generate culture. They literally create it through their behavior. So it is our behavior that is generating culture. And if that behavior is self-centered or short-sighted, victim-based, or any of this other adolescent behavior, then you're creating an adolescent culture.
Philip Folsom, thank you so much for joining today.
My man.
So you're my neighbor. I moved into this house. I moved to Los Angeles into this house just over a year ago. Remember, I was walking down the street, walking my dog 2 blocks away, and I see these 2 really cool silver trucks. One's a Jeep Gladiator, nice build on it. One is, I think, an old Defender with a big Wolf Tribe logo on the side, leadership training, personal development, all that. And I was like, I gotta meet this guy.
Who the fuck is that dude?
I was like, this guy looks pretty cool. And then probably a few weeks later, we were both walking our dogs, ran into each other in the street, had a quick hello, and I'm really excited that we get to sit down today. So thank you for coming here.
And I was one of those rare guys probably in LA that talks to other people.
Probably.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate. And I came from New York, which is like even more rare. But I was in Colorado a long time where like everyone talks to everybody and it's a little too much. So I'm glad we had a chance to say hello. So I'll fast forward from then to about a month ago. And a month ago, I hadn't started this show yet. I was sitting on the couch with one of my close friends. His name is Marco. And shout out to Marco. This episode is going to be dedicated mostly to him and to men like him. And hopefully.
How old is Marco?
Marco, 30.
Okay.
So as I was thinking a lot about launching this series and brainstorming ideas, I was enlisting and asking a lot of friends, like, you know, give me some advice. What do you want to hear about? So I asked Marco, hey, you're a man. I'm a man. We're young men. What keeps you up at night these days about being a man? He looks at me and he kind of laughs a little and he thinks for a sec and he looks up, he goes, leadership. I was like, oh, it's a great one. Like at work, obviously. And he's like, yeah, no, actually. It's like I'm in a new relationship with my new girlfriend. We've been dating like 6 months now. They're super serious, probably going to get married, moved in together already. And he's like, we're both natural born leaders. And sometimes I don't know when to lead in the relationship and when not to lead in the relationship and let her lead. Little things like where do we go to dinner tonight? Or which way should we take our run when we go to the park? Or bigger things like how much money do we save this month? Or, you know, what neighborhood do we move to? I was like, interesting. It's a good one.
Yeah.
And you came to mind. So let's dig into that today. So
cool.
The topic is leadership. You know, you're the leadership guy, both from the military to personal coaching and training with the workforce. But I'd love to also talk about like how do you lead in a relationship at home, and how do you lead friends and family, and how do you lead with changing gender dynamics and all that. Yeah. So first question is, what is the historical account here from an anthropological standpoint?
Yeah. Well, anthropologically, when we look at indigenous tribal kinship systems, there's a clear gender division of roles. And women run the inter-tribal dynamics, which is resource management and socializing and conflict resolution and marriages and just all those dynamics that happen within the tribe. And then that baton of leadership is passed to the men as it has to do with extra-tribal dynamics, which is war and travel and territory. And so that is an ancient battle-tested system. It is still within us.
And we're talking thousands of years of wiring.
Potentially millions.
Okay.
Humanity, Homo sapien has been on the planet for 300,000 years, but we're part of a long legacy of, hominid development over millions of years, and they ran a kinship system. And in many ways, you can look at a lot of communal animals. They have that same gender breakdown. So it isn't that society is inherently matriarchal or patriarchal. It is a combination, a reciprocal combination of both of those dynamics. And that, of course, needs to be an agreement. And so when it comes to any type of relationship conversation, there needs to be either strong directive leadership or acquiescing into victim, or it's negotiation. And in our current era, we're not a repository of cultural systems that men do this and women do this. That's over.
Yeah. When did that just end?
Most recently, the historical movement with looking at the women's right to vote and to work and have a credit card and to enter society. That was a recalibration of a previous very patriarchal system, and that has now run into some very squirrely territory, and which is probably a topic we can get into, but that one will be loaded.
Sure,
it's going to get a lot of people, panties in a bunch. So the women entering the workforce and having reproductive rights and having claiming their sovereignty as that actually was a correct recalibration of the dynamic. What we look at in indigenous cultures, where they have very strong leadership roles, and they are integral. In fact, they have rock solid defined sovereignty over certain aspects of society, and men will acquiesce and support that. But the women also have the inverse, where as soon as things get into territoriality and defense and hunting and all of these inherently traditionally masculine things, then that was, again, traditionally the masculine sphere. And now we're at the point where relationships have to negotiate and find a line that is reciprocal and functional for both parties. So where do you want to go for dinner? That you can either have the question, and this is actually a very functional question, would you like to lead or would you like to let me lead? And that makes it very clear. It's on the table.
Yeah.
And you can still negotiate and argue about those things, but most of the time when somebody says, actually, I want to lead this.
Yeah.
Oh,
cool.
Absolutely cool.
Yeah.
And the big common questions that I get from the women in my life, and I run a big men's group. I'm very involved in warrior culture and veteran issues. They're looking for good men. They're looking for traditional men, high value, traditional, good men. Where are they? I'm like, they're all around you. They've just been broken by society and no longer have the sovereignty to claim that role.
Since I started socializing this podcast on social media, I haven't even launched it yet, by the way. I'm just putting out little things here and there to start kind of the pre-launch. I'm having more women, females in my life, friends, reach out to me than men, asking me questions, like specific questions on basically the overarching theme is, where are these men?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, anyone I can think of who falls in that category is married or engaged at this point.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And I find that to be pretty fascinating right now. So where do you think those men are? You mentioned they were kind of broken down.
Well, we can't have the masculine conversation without talking about initiation.
Great.
And so that's what women are engaging with is a generation of uninitiated men that were raised by uninitiated men that were raised by uninitiated men.
What does initiated mean here?
Initiated means that you have crossed the threshold into a mature masculine identity, which means you are no longer running a boy psychology of immediate gratification. That's the big one. And it happens to be that's the number one marker of long-term success. How much can you defer gratification?
Why is that the one?
It's the one that all the psychological studies have pinpointed of if you can train a child to be able to defer gratification, they're going to win the rest of their life.
Wasn't there a pretty substantial study done with children? You may know it. I mean, I'm blanking exactly on the details, but it was like they gave them marshmallows or something like that.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
It's just that's a classic sociology experiment of you get one now, if you can hold off, you get two later.
Okay.
And
fascinating. That's what separates boys from the men.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the root of that is sacrifice. Are you capable of understanding the sacrifice to create something more significant? And the full initiation is that significance is not for you. That significance is in the service of the tribe. That's when you become a man, is when you can defer gratification, external validation in the short term. If you can do the hard things in the service of others, that's what all the women are looking for. The men who can do that. That's a man. But that initiation process is arduous because it's not marshmallows in the grown-up world. It's an entire lifestyle operating system ethos of I have to surrender this victim mentality that somebody is perpetrating malevolence against me. It's so much easier to blame my dad, blame the government, blame society, blame women. The moment that you start blaming, you're no longer running that masculine identity. You're now running boy psychology.
When do you think historically, and I'm curious when and why and what took place, that this just stopped being a thing?
Well, there's a lot of different stages where we lost initiation, but the big one happened when we started living in organizations, communities, tribes that were larger than 150 people. And that's Dunbar's number. It has to do with the size of your neocortex. And
was that the Industrial Revolution when we kind of moved into cities?
And before. We had big cities in, Indus Valley, Mesopotamia. I mean, as soon as we started living in, post-agricultural worlds, then we started to see the collapse of our kinship systems within those cities, but there was still vast amounts of pastoral or hunting-gathering or even small communities, farms, the American farming era. That was a kinship system. Barn raising, that's an old ritual where all the neighbors come together and help one man lift his barn. And the reciprocity of that is that as soon as you've experienced that, you now have the honor or the duty to now go to your neighbors when it's their barn raising time. So that's sacrifice. Nobody wants to go, hike across a valley and work all day lifting heavy timber, but that's giving up the marshmallow for the sake of that level of honorable relationship that you have with that other man. It is forever you're linked together. And the military still has that. And there are a few other through lines to that ancient system that are still functional. Team sports, incredibly important. When I just do a quick poll with a executive team from a big company, who's played team sports? It's universal. Almost everybody has had some deep affiliation experience with that level of interconnected humanity focused on a shared vision and shared values and a shared mission. Like that's the core of it. When people started living, in big cities, or that movement to the cities, then you can no longer maintain kinship systems. And you and I live a block apart, but we're not hanging out. We're not asking each other for help because we don't have that level of intimacy. I have neighbors, and most of the people listening to this podcast, you have neighbors you don't know their names. That's shocking. I mean, that is evidence of a profoundly dysfunctional culture.
Does that bum you out?
Yeah, it's scary. It's a scary dynamic because that lack of belonging is really what's behind all of the lone wolf scavenger behavior that we're seeing in society. Is, lone wolves don't do well. They can't do what they're built to do, which is collaborate with other wolves, hunt big game, everyone eats. That's what we're designed to do at a cellular level. And so when we are isolated from each other, we not only are dealing with the fact we can't do anything significant in our life. So isolation removes meaning, purpose, significance. It just chops the top end off of everything that men find fulfilling in their life.
Yep. And here we are in the loneliness epidemic.
Yeah. It's a reality, and it's increasing. All the numbers are radically increasing with particularly men with isolation. It's tracking along exactly with suicide rates, depression, anxiety, addiction rates, right along with isolation. Because you cannot self-initiate as a man. It involves the death of your previous identity, and it's brutal. It's rock bottom. So you need to be killed. The boy's killed for the man to be born. So
in tribal times, many, many years ago, what was the ceremony around initiation? And I'm sure they were different in every culture. I mean, I think I was raised Jewish. Bar mitzvah. It's a good example. Kind of means a little bit different now.
Snip.
Yep. It's another good example. What are some big ones? And then what's the modern take on this?
Well, the Jewish one that's a rock solid one, Bar mitzvah. You had to sacrifice. You had to demonstrate the knowledge of your tribe. You had to experience the wound, which is a death. In the Christian religion, the baptism is not a blessing. It's a drowning. It's the death of that previous person and then the rebirth of this new person. And so it involves some form of ritual death. You get your tooth knocked out. You get ritual scarring. There's some, and in the military, there are certain branches that when they give you your airborne wings, or you give it's a pin that you take the back off, put on your uniform, but they don't put the pins back on the back. They just punch it right into you. Welcome to airborne. Like that, that is an initiation. Basic training is an initiation. They shave your head. They do everything they can to remove and kill this old identity in order to create this new identity of a soldier or a Marine or whatever that is.
What would you say, if what's the oldest original initiation ceremony? And I'm curious, where did this start?
Well, the genesis of initiation is that boys are raised by women. They always have been, and they always will be, because that's the source of your nutrition and your nurturing. And
it's made inside one.
We're all products of our mothers, and for those formative years, you are in your mother's house, and her job is to domesticate you, so you don't throw shit at strangers in the supermarket, and keep you safe so you don't fall out of a tree, which, if we didn't have our mothers, we would be apes, and there's a lot of that running around in the world. But at some point, you have to transition to your father's house. And so in many, many cultures, the men will actually have a pre-established dramatic event where they swoop into the women's hut and steal the boy. And the women put up a great show of trying to defend their boy. And the screaming child is brought out into the night where he goes to the fire and he gets introduced to the ways of men. So that dynamic of going from your mother's house to your father's house is ancient. And a lot of that has to do with we are a very unique species in that we have a long neotenous period, which is a fancy way of saying a prolonged childhood. The size of our skulls predicates that we're born too early. But that was kind of the evolutionary compromise of we couldn't birth our children if they were completely done. So we're birthed as a puddle of goo. You're useless for a long period of time. There's no other species that has that.
Yeah, I mean, cows are born and they walk out of the womb.
Yeah, and
it's great.
Within a couple of weeks, the wolf pups open their eyes, and then a month later they're running around with a elk leg.
Yep.
And then they're getting trained how to hunt.
Yep.
And then they're allowed to watch the hunt. And then eventually they're allowed to kind of participate, and the rest of the pack knows, I know they're going to fuck it up. And they do.
Yep.
But within a year, you're hunting. You're an active contributor to the tribe. With humans, we have this long neotenous period where we're basically creating a human, outside of the uterus for years.
Yep.
So the initiation aspect is something that's kind of biological in many ways, but it is universal in every culture. There's some sort of arduous event that the boy must do.
Okay. What is the equivalent side for girls and women? Because I just don't. Yeah. I've never actually been exposed to that. I had the boy version.
Yeah, in the Jewish religion, and this is kind of Middle Eastern, which is all the same Abrahamic cultures.
Sure.
When you get your first period, your mom slaps you. Right, and that's sort of like a little, haha, I killed you. Now you're a woman. Welcome. But biologically, there seems to be an easier transition for women into womanhood. With men, it is an event, and it's an ongoing event. To reach a next level of masculine awareness, you're constantly going through that process of learning. Jiu-jitsu is popular right now, and I've watched jiu-jitsu become popular in the last 15 years, and it wasn't just driven by MMA. Jiu-jitsu is popular because it's a kinship system. And the reason why it's a fully intact tribal system, each academy, is that it's dealing with lethal technology. Like, that's what you're doing when you go to jiu-jitsu, is you're learning how to break and kill other humans. And so that sense of trust and safety and responsibility and honor and duty is mandatory if you're going to participate in such an activity. So, a lot of the professors in jiu-jitsu schools, they call it domestication. When a white belt comes in, they are domesticated. You even use that term. We domesticate people when they first come in. That's an initiation process. And they want to find out what you do under stress. They regulate, they correct. There's always an enforcer that is like, you're rolling a little too hard. Now you roll with Bruno. And now you learn. And you don't do that anymore.
Sure.
And so jiu-jitsu is so popular right now because it's one of those few places that men go and they go, oh, this is what I've been missing. It's like going into the Matrix.
I felt that.
Oh, it's your eyes work for the first time. Your soul works for the first time.
I remember, and I think this is pretty relevant actually here. Let's see where this goes. I was at a jiu-jitsu retreat in Mendocino, Northern California, about 2 years ago. Met this dude there, cop, big dude, fucking scary, brown belt. Of course, I had to roll with him, and I was a white belt at the time.
You're a big guy. You roll with him.
I mean, this guy was a house. Nicest guy there. And we got to talking. He has 2 sons. And he said, I have not that many rules in the household. I keep pretty strict, leadership, but not a lot of rules. My sons don't break the rules because there's not that many. And the few rules, though, are you have to do your homework every day. You have to do your chores. You have to brush your teeth, keep personal hygiene, and you have to train. You can choose Taekwondo, karate, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, wrestling, you name it, but you have to train every day. That's it. Those are the rules. I was like, really? That's interesting. And I thought about it for a bit, and I asked him a few days later, I was like, what's going on with that? And he was like, well, it is a core responsibility to be able to protect yourself as much as it's a core responsibility to keep personal hygiene and do your chores in this household and be a member of the team and do your homework and get good grades, and you got to do that. And you also have to be able to protect others around you. It's like from the day they can walk, they're learning this stuff. And I was like, I kind of like that. I might do that with my kids one day. It's pretty cool. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Ryan Mickler, he Order Man,
okay.
Men's Work guy. He's got a big podcast. He bundles those three things that cop shared into the primary pillars of masculinity are protect, provide, preside.
Preside.
Which means leadership.
It's funny, the last two episodes we did, provide and protect, came up.
Yeah.
I love that we're on episode 3, and we're going to add a third.
Yeah.
I like it. Preside.
Cool. Shout out, Ryan Mickler.
Dig it.
Yeah.
So we'll start to kind of get into the topic of leadership, bring these pieces together a bit. I think the overarching big question, let's see where this goes, is what is flawed with leaders today? And I think a lot of it probably has to do with we lost our way at some point from everything we've just been discussing the last 20 minutes or so.
Yeah. Leadership is directly connected to initiation. So an uninitiated leader is self-centered. They're doing what they're doing for their own advancement, gratification, whatever that is. Leaders are the head of culture before they are anything else. And culture is the combination of all the beliefs we have and the behaviors we express. It's our ethos. It's also our character and our destiny. It is the big catch-all driver of human functioning. So successful cultures are like successful operating systems on a computer. Everything works, and it's fast, and it's
efficient,
awesome.
And it's been tested. I mean, these things are not new. You don't just figure it out right away.
And dysfunctional cultures, they create dysfunctional people and projects, and the leaders are the people who generate culture. They literally create it through their behavior, not what they say and write and post, but just like children are not listening to us, they're watching us. So it is our behavior that is generating culture. And if that behavior is self-centered or short-sighted or any of these, or victim-based, or any of this other adolescent behavior, then you're creating an adolescent culture.
So here's a brutal question.
Yeah.
Some may disagree. I'm just going to throw it out there. I think most people would probably agree we live in a rather dysfunctional society right now.
Profoundly.
How do you train the leaders of tomorrow in a dysfunctional society for the future of the dysfunctional society? It's like, where the hell do you start with that?
There's introducing them to the fact that there is a roadmap, that there is a path. Campbell says about the hero's journey that we need not fear this going on this journey alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us, and the labyrinth is fully known. Profound Joseph Campbell, right? So most people don't realize that there is a way through the labyrinth, that we can kill the Minotaur, that we can rescue the children, and we can get out. Because it's so complex. It's so convoluted and Byzantine that, hey, you're just stuck here. Good luck making it. Everybody's scavenging, so just hustle. Like that's all that society has provided for men. But you don't have to go too far back to see that there is a ancient roadmap, a legacy of masculine development and meaning and purpose and significance. And we're certainly watching it in our movies. I mean, if you pull up the, whatever the latest Avengers film is, you're watching the hero's journey. You're watching
every good movie ever.
You're watching sacrifice. I am Iron Man, and he kills himself for humanity. It's like, wow, yeah, that's available. Yeah. So it's not gone. Those stories are still here because that is the roadmap through the labyrinth. It's right in front of us.
So I could try to almost summarize it a bit, at least in my own head. So and I never thought about it this way before, which is so cool. Every good movie I think of, the one that comes to mind right now is Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. There was a dysfunction happening that was fucking scary. In this case, like a labyrinth. And some hero, leader, if you will, pre-leader, was called to go on a quest. And they, with all the fear in their eyes, still eagerly were like, I am going to work through the labyrinth. I'm going to enter the scariness. I'm going to go to the cliffs of Mordor or whatever and emerge victorious on the other side. And then I'm the leader. It's almost like that's the training ground, is to work through the dysfunctional system to figure out how to lead it.
There's a really important missing piece in that story.
Please.
Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Rocky, they're all the same story. Mm-hmm. They're exactly the same plot sequence. Mm-hmm. And they're all given that opportunity to go save the world, fight Apollo Creed, unlock the Matrix, whatever that thing is, right? Go train to be a Jedi. And they all refuse. They all refuse the call, right? They refuse the call for the same reason that we are refusing our call. And that is, we're too busy. I can't go train to be a Jedi. I've got work tomorrow. Mm-hmm. How many times have we said that? Mm-hmm. How many men do you know, like, oh, I'd love to go do that thing, but I've got these responsibilities to my family. Or it's inadequacy based of, who am I to go fight Apollo Creed? Who am I to go carry the ring of power to Mordor?
Would you say that's fear?
It's based on one of two things for all men. And one is a fear of abandonment or a fear of inadequacy. Those are the two core wounds that initially cripple our hero. Mm-hmm. They're also the source of the greatness of our hero because, the old Roman, or actually Greek quote, fate guides those who will and those who won't she drags. If you don't go train to be a Jedi, if you don't go do this thing, then the world, the universe, fate, God is going to forcibly, make that journey happen. Mm-hmm. If you don't make time for your health, you're going to make time for your illness. If you don't make time for your relationships, you're going to deal with betrayal and isolation. If you don't make time for your career, you get it. It's just universal. Mm-hmm. And that very important piece in all the stories is there as a form of absolution. And every man in the world has refused the call. And they are now. You and I are both refusing the call in something in our life that when I get to it, when I have time, when I have a plan, when I have support, when I have self-worth, we're always waiting. And the reality is, none of those heroes were ready. Frodo did not want that. He did not want that. Mm-hmm. And neither did Neo, and neither did Rocky. None of them, were ready. Yeah. So we move before we're ready. And that's the scary part. Seneca said, you can't make a plan for the unknown. Mm-hmm. You have to be ready, or you have to be active and prepared. That's all we can ever hope to be. Mm-hmm. So the cops' story of getting their kids smart and trained and disciplined, they're ready. Whatever the call to adventure is, if you're smart and disciplined and trained, you're kind of ready. Yeah. So he's doing a good job with that. Yeah. And then the next phase of that journey is that once we're thrown out into the road of trials, the arduous path to get our ass kicked, we then find our allies, we find our elder wisdom, we find our supernatural aid. Like that, those are the blessings of the universe. They are there, they are real. And so many men are missing those kind of heroic gifts. Allies are central. You cannot become an initiated man by yourself. You cannot raise a barn by yourself. You cannot start a company. You cannot get in shape. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that you can do that's significant by yourself. Mm-hmm. You're done. Mm-hmm. And so that isolation culture that is so pervasive is absolutely tragic. Yeah. It's a tragic state of affairs. Krishnamurti, the philosopher, said, it is no measure of health to be well adapted to a profoundly sick society. That is the state of the world,
Yeah.
particularly for men.
Mm-hmm.
It's a profoundly sick society, and the men who are adapted to that, they're not healthy, they're not thriving,
Mm-hmm.
they're just adapted.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, this random story from I think I was early 20s, I think I was 21, maybe 22, just came to mind. I haven't really thought about it ever since. So might even been younger. I might have been, let's say 21. I was at a bar in New York City. And at the time I was living in Boulder, Colorado, and I was home visiting. And I ran into some high school friends at this bar who I haven't seen in like 4 years since high school. And one of the kids who was there was a state champion wrestler in high school, total stud. And I hadn't seen him in a while. And I was like, dude, it's been a while. How you been? Good. I'm like, so what's going on? How's life? Like, what are you studying? What do you want to do? And he just goes, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I do know I just want to be a leader. And I'm drunk. I'm 21 years old. And I was just like, okay, the hell does that mean? Like, sounds good, brother. Took off. Looking back, I'm like, you know what? A lot of respect for that answer.
Yeah.
What do you think he was saying, this 21-year-old kid at the time?
I think it's a recognition that it's like Neo knows that there's something wrong in the world. We're missing something. Mm-hmm. Every man who is even slightly online, conscious, aware, knows that there's something catastrophically broken. Yeah. Like we know it. And I think there's a lot of rabbit chases around, well, it's the government keeping stuff from us. And a lot of that's kind of red herring. It really has to do with us, with what humanity is designed to be and what it no longer is. And my anthropological take on that is we've just lost our kinship systems. We're built to thrive in deeply interconnected, fulfilling kinship systems. And good companies are that. Yeah. The best companies, the best work teams are kinship systems. They recognize that they're spending the majority of their waking hours doing this thing with these people. It's the very center of their life. Mm-hmm. So it had better be meaningful, better be fucking fun, better be significant, because that's what you've offered your sword to. That's what men do. We find a lord to serve. Yeah. And we offer our sword. And if so many careers are so deeply unfulfilling, and you don't have to be doing anything that's world changing, it just needs to be significant to the fact that you belong and you can achieve status and value, which is very different than power. There's a big quest for power. That's not how kinship systems work. It's not how hierarchies work. Hierarchies are value-based. So you can be, working at a gas station and you're providing value if you see it. And the very best way you can do that thing. And the way you support your coworkers and the way you support customers and clients and all that dynamic can be very fulfilling.
Yeah. I think something that comes to mind a lot these days is pretty hot in pop culture, and you see it a lot on TikTok and Instagram of these like little corners of the internet where there's a lot of like masculine stuff going on. And you hear a lot about like high value men have a mission, and women are attracted to high value men on a mission. It's the most attractive thing. A man who like has a purpose, has a path, knows what he's fighting for. And I think about that a lot. And I ask myself all the time, like, what's my purpose? What's my mission? And when you mentioned a couple minutes ago, this like you feel this almost intuitive call that there's something broken and I need to go solve it. And I'm naturally, as a man and as a natural born leader, I'm going to go solve that thing and nothing is going to stop me. And that's my number one. It's my mission. I struggle to accept and believe the fact that young men today and younger generations, they don't have that so much. I have a couple younger brothers who are in high school right now. And sure, I'm not going to ask them at 15 years old, 16 years old, like, what's your mission? I didn't know that answer at that time. But I don't know if I see that they're going to eventually get there. Do you think the concept of mission is, we're losing it?
It certainly was something that traditionally has been supplied to us. In indigenous cultures, you were provided your mission or vision.
Mm-hmm.
You were provided your values. You were provided your ethos. Like you were, and the military is, again, an example of that. Is you join the military and you get all of your meaning drivers delivered to you.
Yeah.
And all you had to do is abide.
I even think of like mission trips in a lot of
Great.
religions.
Yeah.
Like, here's what you're going to go do.
Yeah.
And you're going to put your life on the line for this.
And if you abide by that shared mission, vision, values, then you receive the things that you need, which is belonging and status.
Yep.
Great. One of the big challenges of reintegration back into the civilian world from the military position is now you have to find all those things. You no longer have a mission, vision, and values that are provided to you.
Yeah.
It's the moment mythologically in the Torah when the Jews were liberated from tyranny and slavery of Pharaoh. You don't get the promised land. You get fucking desert. And the desert is a trackless, unforgiving place that is designed to test the faithful.
Yeah.
And so if you can't find that pillar of smoke on the horizon, if you don't have your commandments, if you don't, and that's your vision and your values. That's the metaphor, straight metaphor of that. You wander the desert forever. And it's hard to do. It's a hard thing to actually find that mission. It's very challenging to be able to actually put work on what is my code, my ethos, my brand, my values. That's work that most men don't do. Most
historically
families don't
or in modern times?
Well, modern times are artificial times. And, tribally, we were given that. We are no longer given that. So we are now off the horizon. There be monsters. We no longer have it. And the source, ultimately, of our vision and our values was God. And God is dead. Mm-hmm. Nietzsche's famous quote.
Yeah.
And he immediately followed that up with, so in order to replace God, we must become the Superman. That was the coining of the phrase Superman. That is such an idealistic figure that understands exactly what they should be doing and how they should be doing it and why they should be doing it. And, Nietzsche's a negative dude. So he's saying, none of us are Supermen and we've just killed God. So we're done.
Yeah.
I don't agree with, that we need to be Supermen to have meaningful lives. But we do have the need and a requirement in artificial times to develop artificial means. And we're in that. And it's the reason why ice baths are popular, because we need adversity. We can't function without adversity and challenge and stress. Yeah, we need stress.
Yeah.
And we're in a climate-controlled studio right now. We are zero threats. We are never hungry. We are So we're looking for artificial means to create that. Mm-hmm. That's why jujitsu and hunting they're all just artificial adversity systems.
Yeah.
And the same thing is true with communities and the generation of finding your own vision and values in life. That's stuff that it's a pretty new field. That whole personal growth leadership movement is being generated in the vacuum of it. And nature abhors a vacuum. So all of this current thinking, and it's not just, we're in an era where we're seeing the rise of very exciting things happening. This is a great time, best time in history. The doomsayers and the nihilistic, negative, cynical people, it's like, you know nothing about history. This is the fucking best time ever.
Yeah.
This is the era of, the Greek state that generated Plato and Socrates and Aristotle. This is the this is a great time. We're seeing powerful thinkers who are showing up in the field right now. And it's a particularly cool time because we have enough freedom. We don't have a lot of adversity, but we have just enough big challenges that there are great men arriving on the scene right now. And a lot of them are very young. It's fascinating to see. I've been in the leadership field for 30 years, and, it was Covey and, kind of old school thinking. It's so much more profound and nuanced and integrated. Most of these thinkers are coming from the business world because it's applied. Hormuzzi, I don't know him personally, but the things that have come through my feed, I'm like,
yeah.
What are you studying, dude? Because that didn't exist 10 years ago.
Sure.
10 years, a blip. And all of a sudden you've got people who are integrated at a wisdom level that didn't happen 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And here they are.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time, and the solutions are being provided. They're showing up. And a lot of that is a practical roadmap for finding meaning, which is vision or mission, how to navigate life correctly. Mm-hmm. That's a values conversation. It's ancient, but it's here.
Yeah. How do you feel about modern trend of very, very successful leaders building massive organizations who are very young, early 20s,
give me an example.
Mid-20s, Facebook, Snapchat, Uber, Airbnb. Right. All these companies are founded by young men. And then at some point in their Series B, Series C round of the company, still really early, the gray hairs need to come in. That's kind of what we call it in the tech world. And it's a weird time.
Adult supervision.
Yeah, like adult supervision. I mean, all of a sudden we need some adults in the room to build a real company here. And a lot of those CEOs, those early founders, they stay on as the CEO for the long haul. A lot of times they get booted. And in this conversation, I'm starting to question, kind of for the first time really, thinking about respect of elders being so important, being so ingrained in our DNA, but now all of a sudden the elders are not in the room and it's all the young kids playing around and having massive influence. Even a good example could be 18-year-old kids on OnlyFans or TikTok making $40 million a year doing whatever the hell they're doing.
Yeah, and broken.
So what's up with that?
Yeah. There's a certain amount of mileage that's required for the integration of things to happen. Just reading a book, how much are you actually integrating? And we're drowning in information, but we're starving for wisdom, which is applied information. And that's the elder wisdom conversation. It takes reps and mileage, and it takes those 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
So you can get the fast burn innovation, that revolutionary, disruptive innovation, which creates all those big things. But the ability to have the patience and the experience to be able to actually create sustainability. That's an elder wisdom conversation.
Not even...
Because we move slower.
Yeah.
We've seen it 100 times.
I mean, directly relates to sacrifice, delayed gratification.
Yeah. There's a very, very relevant story just from my industry of doing a lot of kind of like wisdom, vision questy type things. At the end of World War II, right before the Nazis closed down, the borders, they were able to pull a lot of people out, intelligentsia, Jews, and one of them was Kurt Hahn, and a sociologist. So they put him to work doing studies, particularly around the merchant marines that were being, sunk by the German U-boats. And he came up with a very interesting observation that when you looked at the data, you know, 100 sailors going to the freezing North Atlantic. And there was this crazy disparity between the survival rate of men under 30 and those older 30. And the sailors who were over 30, 40, 50, 60, were all surviving. And the young men were drowning. And he's like, this needs to be studied. And basically he came up with the answer that old men refuse to die because they've been in the water before. Mm-hmm. They've been in the water and they've been on sinking ships. They understand that as long as they do these things, they have survived and they will survive. And then for the young men, oh no, I went bankrupt. My life's over. It's a adversity experience resume that allows you to understand the grit and the perseverance and the resiliency to be able to scale something to a significant level.
Yeah.
And that leap, that may be the gray hair conversation. I may answer that gray hair conversation.
I'm curious about parenting. I don't have any kids yet. You have a daughter, right? One daughter.
Yep.
She's in high school, just graduated.
Yep, in college.
How did you, and how do you currently think about instilling grit in your kid? And had you had a boy, do you think it would have been any different?
Ooh, got me on that one. I had this awareness recently.
Yeah.
It would have been radically different. And I've told her this in an admission and bordering on an apology that I've let my daughter, I've surrendered my daughter's development more than I would ever have done to a son. There's certain things, I would have been the cop, your friend. You're like, discipline, you must train every day. You must. Because women have inherent value. Women are valuable. They're the most valuable thing on the planet. Mm-hmm. Men live their entire lives in the honoring and the worship of women. That's why men make money and why we lift weights and why we do all the things we do. Women are valuable. Men are not. Men are valuable by what they provide.
Yeah.
And that's a brutal reality, but it is a reality. And so an initiated man is valuable to the tribe, and that makes him valuable to himself. Mm-hmm. That's a fulfilling life. Mm-hmm. If you're providing value, you are on a great roadmap. And women, they're inherently valuable, so they don't have to do all these things. And so, yes, I probably made the mistake of not being more arduous and more demanding and having more structure and accountability with my daughter. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the reality of that. So I'm in a retrofit as quickly as I can about those things, because we're no longer in an era where you get to just do that. You do have to play in the job market as a woman. You do have to, in the same way, men have to deal with their emotional intelligence and their resiliency and their communication skills and all, their pre-trauma. Like, we have to do all that work.
Yeah.
Women have to do the ancillary to that.
Do you think it's modern men's responsibility to do that work? We have to do it?
It makes us capable of providing greater value.
Yep.
So a man that has addressed his pre-trauma issues, that is a more resilient, more available, more patient, more compassionate, more successful man. Able
to provide and protect better.
Yeah. And more likable, more able to connect with other people. Like, it's just across the board.
Yep.
You're more powerful if you've handled those things.
Yeah. Similar question about parenting, but now what about as a leader in the workplace when you've got a team of young men and young women? Mm-hmm. Do you lead any differently amongst the two?
No. Because that's a gender neutral space.
Yeah.
It's kind of that's the era we're living in, and we're still negotiating those things.
Yeah.
And there's some glaring differences that fly in the face of that. That women get to wear makeup, sexual signaling. Oh, look how nubile and attractive and breedable I am. High heels, cleavage. Like there's a bunch of things that women are allowed to do that is just straight sexual signaling. Mm-hmm. And yet it's accepted that women get to play the sex card in the business world. But if you wanted to be really neutral, if you wanted to be really equal, then we would all, be kind of buttoned up and not do that thing.
Sure.
But in this time, business should be a pretty gender neutral place. Mm-hmm. So in terms of treating people differently, we need to treat people psychologically differently.
Just based off who they are as humans.
Yeah. That's very important. That's good leadership.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
There was this book, I forgot what it was called, but one of my closest friends, CFO, recommended I read it. And the genesis of the book, you may know what I'm talking about. It's what separates good leaders from great leaders. Good leaders figure out a way to lead the whole org, and everyone kind of gets led the same. Great leaders, historically, and this is like based off a study, the ones that separated the good from the great actually led every person on their team individual to themselves, how they themselves needed to be led. Some needed tough love, some needed patience, some needed to be scolded, some needed to be handheld, all the stuff. Yeah. And that's it. So
we call it the platinum rule.
Okay, platinum rule.
The golden rule is you treat everyone the same.
Yeah.
And the golden rule is a post-agriculture dynamic where you don't really know people, so you treat everyone the same.
There's a lot of that to almost like follow the law of averages.
Yeah, it's just the acknowledgement that we don't know people intimately. So examples are elevators. When you're in an elevator with strangers, like there's a certain non-negotiable behavior set of how you stand, what you talk about, if anything, your behavior. It's incredibly superficial, shallow, guarded. Yep. That's the golden rule.
Yep.
Is that we in banks, in airports, in social situations, like we just we're going to operate here. The platinum rule to treat people actually how they need to be treated, not how you want to be treated. That platinum rule can only be implemented with a depth of understanding and intimacy about the individual people.
Yep. So
it's great leadership.
I have a ton of questions here. First one is, why are we teaching the golden rule to children?
Because they have to survive in the real world. We've caved. And it is practical.
Why not teach the platinum rule to children? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, you have to radically mix up the system. Mm-hmm. You have to start dealing with a whole slew of high-performing behavior.
Yeah.
And how we treat kids is an indoctrination, and we're teaching them how to survive in a lone wolf world. You're entering a lone wolf world, so you keep your eyes on your own paper. You do your own work. You don't use certain words. You da-da-da-da-da. Like it is preparing kids to be well adapted for a profoundly sick society. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's the game. That's the educational system. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of private schools that are not doing that, but they're very rare, revolutionary, and very expensive. So they want their kids to be prepared to not be well adapted to a profoundly sick society. They're preparing their kids to lead. Mm-hmm. To change the world. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, they're $50,000 a year here in Los Angeles, and there's a waiting list.
Yep.
A mile long, and that's brutally visible the moment people get promoted into leadership. Is that whole 20 years of indoctrination of you be the best individual you can, and all of a sudden collaborate. It's a 180-degree pivot of now you need to treat people differently. You need to look at collaboration. You need to look at shared value. You need to help each other on these fucking tests. That's the game.
Mm-hmm.
The real world is very different.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done a woeful job with our education system.
Mm-hmm. So as a leader, if I've got a team of 10 people, 5 people, 1,000 people, a number of people, and you're in the workplace, so there is a line that is drawn around how personal you get with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And as the leader, how do you diagnose tactically, actionably, following the platinum rule, how every person wants to be treated without crossing that line?
One of the big ones that has, again, blossomed into this kinship vacuum that we're all living in is the whole psychometric world, which is Myers-Briggs or DISC. And it's a very well-grounded, well-meaning, profound insight into the differences in personality or psychology of people. And it's based on two different axes of human psychology. One is how connected are you, and then how ambitious are you. That's basically where you fall on those two different axes, places you in one of 4 different quadrants. That's DISC and Myers-Briggs and behavioral styles and all that. The application of that profound system is poorly administered because it's done through an HR function, and that understanding of the differences in people is what creates the opportunity for platinum rule. Is that if you know you have a very analytical person that needs more detail, needs more cadence, needs more information, that's a radically different person than your visionary, creative, expressive person. So understanding those differences through a psychometric is a very powerful system. Mm-hmm. It's just not administered well in current culture. Interestingly, and this is one of those discoveries that I made through anthropology, is every tribe has 4 different roles. Every tribe, every indigenous culture has these 4 primary roles that hold the kinship system together. It's exactly the same as Myers-Briggs.
What are those 4 roles?
Directly. You have a visionary chief. You have a results-oriented warrior class. You have your wisdom source, which is the shaman, oracle, wise man. That holds the mastery and the wisdom of the tribe. And then you have the resiliency, engagement, lover archetype, which is the S in DISC, supportive, amiable, relationship oriented.
When you work with and look for high-performing teams, are all those boxes checked typically?
Yes.
Interesting.
It's going to be somewhat industry specific. Mm-hmm. For example, odds are your cop friend was a warrior class person, and warrior class men gravitate towards those particular careers. Analytic, magician class men are going to gravitate to engineering and other dynamics. A lot of startup people, very visionary, sovereign, king type people. So industry will collect larger groupings of a certain class, but every intact, high-performing work team or sports team or family has a combination of all of them. And if you want to go deeper than those 4 tribe levels, a wolf pack has the same 4 roles. They're exactly the same. You have your visionary alpha, you've got your territorial, competitive beta wolf, and you have your teaching role that exists, and you have your nanny wolf. Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same system. And the function of that is it creates adaptability. Differences within our tribe make us adaptable and innovative. Mm-hmm. That's how we've won the game of planetary domination, is that human beings are inherently very different. And if we are aligned on our shared mission, vision, values, those differences are our competitive advantage. If we are unaligned, which is our current state, they cause incredible divisiveness, division, infighting, conflict, and that's what we're experiencing now. At a nation level, our Constitution is our alignment platform. We are all Americans, and that is our Constitution. And so now we can be different, and we can have different political viewpoints, and we can have different beliefs about certain things. But as long as we all abide by that alignment foundation, then our differences will actually move us along and develop our country. We have lost that alignment foundation. Is that, if you fly an American flag, you are a particular party. So we've lost our flag as the thing that holds us together. That's bizarre. For me as an anthropologist, it's catastrophic.
Yeah.
When I saw like half the country can no longer fly an American flag. So there isn't anything that's more of a profound loss of affiliation than that.
Yeah.
That's a significant one. Like whatever people voted, you should be flying that American flag.
Sure. And
then you can make your state, your case that, the borders or this or anything. Yeah, let's have a conversation about it. And great. But the moment that there's that complete loss of affiliation or alignment, which creates belonging, tough times.
So as a leader who's building a tribe, tribe, which word do you prefer?
A tribe is a tribe is a team that has an intact kinship system. That's kind of how my designation of it.
Yeah. So let's say I am a leader, and I want to I am building a team, but I want to build a tribe. Maybe I've got a couple people so far, but like it's time to build. Or at the same time, I'm a parent and I want to build a family.
Yep.
Or I'm a leader of a nation. I want to build
You're ambitious.
whole cabinet.
Yeah.
These are all the hypotheticals.
Right.
For the top performing leaders, parents, CEOs, you name it, are they thinking from the start, we need to make sure that all 4 categories are filled, and I'm going to go really interview and understand where each person falls and build a squad here, or even a fucking sports coach?
Yeah. Well, that's a good analogy. On a sports team, there are different roles. Right? I mean, that's how the game works.
Sure.
An aligned team of specialists will always beat a team of generalists, always. So, you have, that's my guy that throws, and that's my guy that kicks, and those are the guys that block, and he runs, and there's my, those are, it's not psychological, but it is. The O-line is very different than special teams. It's a completely different, identity within the sports team. Like the O-line eats together. That's what they do. It's a little tribe within a tribe. So any good coach is looking at the roles on the team, and they need to have these certain roles met, and those roles are going to be driven by whatever the particular offense or defense that coach is running. So there are some coaches, and this is the football analogy, that are very defensive focused, and they're going to stack all their resources on playing defense. We win through championships are won playing defense, blah, blah, blah. There are certain, like the West Coast offense, a little before your time, but that was the 49ers and the Cowboys, and that was the first West Coast offense, was very pass heavy, and so they stacked their culture with passing and receiving. That was kind of what they did. So in that analogy, those specialists on the football team are those different archetypes or the psychology roles that we have within our team. More important than that, because that's next echelon. That's like almost fine tuning. Is you have to decide what your operating system is. Sure. That's where everything starts. And the big one is, the first big question is why? Why are we here? The why is it's like your vision. So if it's Walt Disney creating Disneyland, he's creating a happiest place on earth, the safest place, a place where magic exists for children and families. That's his why. And it becomes your brand, your slogan, your North Star, that kind of dynamic. Within families, and good families do this. Like good families huddle up. We're about ready to do our yearly vision planning. Like what's our little vision for the year?
Your family.
Yeah,
cool.
It's the same thing. Like you have to have that North Star to navigate off of. Otherwise, you're going through the desert without the pillar of smoke on the horizon. Yep. You're just wandering the desert. Whew, good luck with that. Our family vision statement, and this actually came from my wife. Shout out Tanya. This year's vision was to live life so well that it serves as an example of what is possible. Dude.
That's great.
I was like, God damn, honey.
Where'd you go with that?
I'm the one that does this normally.
Yeah. Let her lead this time.
So I slipped into support role.
Yeah.
And I'm good at it. And then our core family values are growth, service, and vitality. We kind of had this negotiation around things. So we'll be doing that again. And all good work teams, they will do this every year. And they will reiterate that at a regular cadence throughout the year. Because people will always degrade down to their lowest level of functioning. Like nobody wants to walk uphill. No mountain was ever climbed randomly. Like you need to say that there's something significant at the top of the hill. Otherwise, people are not going to go up it. So good leaders are focused more on that shared commonality of mission, vision, values before they're focused on the specifics of the people on the team. So build the bus first, fill the bus.
What about in the military?
It's a different animal.
So I'll preface this a little bit. Some of the coolest CEOs and founders I've met over the years were Navy SEALs or Green Berets.
Yep.
And they have this thing in common, I've noticed. A lot of them.
Or generals.
They often hire other veterans who were maybe even served with them or just below them. And they build these militant-like teams, and they're out starting some AI company. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And you hang out with these guys, and you're kind of like, I don't know if I belong here. I'm like, these guys are intense.
Yeah.
And they freaking kill it. They raise so much money. They freaking crush their sales. They do really well.
Yep.
But they apply a lot of military-like frameworks to their day-to-day and running the company.
Yep. They're successful. Battle-tested.
Literally.
Military grade. Yeah, 100%. I lecture down at USC, Marshall, and one of the programs that I work a lot with is the Masters of Business for Veterans program. And it's the first of its kind in the United States. And it's all veterans who are transitioning, and they go through this year-long MBA course with just veterans only. And ferociously engaged, supportive, hold each other accountable, incredibly high morale. Like it's a team. It's a cohort. They have an affiliation and identity. You know, they carry a challenge coin in their pocket of cohort 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
And the director, James Bogle, he refers to the military as a leadership incubator. That is what the military is a leadership incubator. And the tragic aspect of our current society is that we have marginalized our veterans because we don't want to really hear about what their experience was and take on that collective trauma. So we have a all volunteer military, and we pay our military like in the same way we pay our cops to go open the trunk with the body in it, because I don't want to do that, and I don't want to have to go process that. I don't want to see a dead kid. I don't want to see car crashes. I don't want to see this high trauma level of experience. And most people have 2 to 3 significant traumatic events in their life, where they see somebody killed in a car crash, and then you're dealing with that. Cops have 400. Like it's exponentially higher. What do you do with all that? So we don't want that in our families. So you keep it in your family, and we pay you, and we'll send you to college, and we'll send you to the VA, because we don't want that. In fact, when people say thank you for your service, it's a dismissal. Versus, hey, well, welcome home, and are you okay? like, ooh, that opens up a certain connection to that trauma that we don't want to have. Anyway, probably another topic.
Yeah.
Might be another conversation. But we're also cutting ourselves off from all of these tremendous resources. Like that was the best of our, particularly men historically, but there are certainly a lot of women who are in now who are kicking ass and are great. Like those people who have been through that training, that initiation, because it was an initiation, and their reentry back into society and reintegration back into society elevates all of us, and we're denying ourselves that. So a lot of these initiated men that, like you're saying, the women are looking for, high value men, they're not being integrated back into society. So they've been, stuck out here in the wilderness of, the VA. But those are very important. The very rare, the ones you're talking about, the Navy SEALs and those are the rare men who have made that jump, and they've been invested in heavily. You're talking about special forces. You're getting a tremendous amount of character development. Yeah. If you've gone to that level. Same thing with the any of the officer training. A general can write their own ticket. They can do whatever they want to do because they're highly functional, highly trained, and highly educated people. These are human weapons. Yeah. They're coming back into our world, and they're great. But we're getting 1% back. Mm-hmm. Most of them are in prison, on the street, dealing with trauma stuff because they're not reintegrated back into society. Mm. And all that has happened post-World War II. So within the last 80 years, we've lost an entire generation of rock star, particularly men. We've had under 8,000 soldiers killed in action since 9/11. Very low, 8,000. Like in all our shenanigans overseas, we only lost 8,000 dudes. In that same period of time, we've lost 150,000 to suicide. Catastrophic.
Post their time serving.
Yeah. Nobody's killing themselves when they're deployed because you have resiliency and kinship and belonging and all those things that make that work. It's the transition back into this sick society, which is crippling these guys. And those are the men that should be, raising the barns. We need those guys back, raising the barns.
As we start to wrap up the episode today, what are some tactical things people like myself can do today, to start to, one, heal the challenging society we're in right now, dysfunctional society right now, two, lead better, three, help people assimilate back into civilian life better, and then just be better men, be better leaders.
Yeah. Write and speak. Now that's part of my mantra when I'm working with men is the way we write is the way we think. The way we speak is the way we think. If we're not writing and speaking, then we're not thinking well. So write and speak. We spend way too much time on our phones. It's not helping with the way that we're actually integrating information into wisdom. And it's definitely not helping with our sense of belonging and connection. Our 5,000 friends on Facebook are not friends. Yeah. Those are whatever they are. Yeah. So write and speak is a big one.
What do you mean by write and speak? Journal?
Journaling is a big one. Yeah. It's, if you want clarity about your life, write it down. Mm-hmm. Doing your vision for the year, I want my life to be better. That doesn't mean shit. Yeah. Write it down. Well, how's it going to be better? Why is it going to be better? What specifically do you want? Write it down. That at least births it from the ether of this messy human life and puts it in the world. Speak those thoughts to other men. Now all of a sudden It's in the real world because now you're in community and now you have the potential for accountability and support and different perspectives and coaching and all the things that make men happen is that. So writing and speaking is central. And some good topics to write on are, what do you want to do this year? I don't know when this podcast come out, but
mid to late January.
Okay, so here we are. You got a brand new year to, transform the world and your life, and speak it to other men. Write your vision. Do some work on what your core values are. It's not, your behavior is not random. Your behavior is being driven by your priorities. So what are your priorities? Growth is my core. Growth is my central core value. Mm-hmm. That's not free. Growth means that I'm sacrificing a bunch of other potential values that other people would find more important. Right? God bless you. But I'm very clear on it. So I make my decision making and my action taking based on that value. So write that. Read about it. Steal shamelessly from other men who are doing better than you. But that act of getting clarity about writing and speaking around what your core values are that create your character and your destiny, that's important shit. Yeah. That's the alchemy of life. That's the divine aspect of us, is that we can run the animal thing, dial up some porn, doom scroll and get drunk. That's the animal. But the divine is creating something very intentional about that. Mm-hmm. And we do it through writing and speaking.
Mm-hmm. Last question. This is where we wrap every episode nowadays.
All right.
What do you think it means to be a man today?
Boy, hard to beat Mickler's 3, right?
Yeah.
So be strong enough that you can protect. And that means a lot of different things. And for a lot of guys, it may be emotional.
Yeah.
Keep your people safe emotionally. Don't be an asshole. Mm-hmm. Don't be a dick. But for you younger men, train. It's very different to move through the world and have a level of competency.
Sure.
I mean, without that, life's a bleak place.
It's pretty funny. There was Jake before he trained, and there was Jake after he started training. Yeah. And it's pretty wild walking into a supermarket, a bar, a party.
Oh, yeah.
Taking my dog out at night. It's just different. It's wild.
Yeah. It gives you sovereignty over life, is the ability to be competent with that.
Yeah.
And all the black belts I know have the softest handshakes. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like shaking hands with a woman, like a child, because they don't need to do anything. You can be so peaceful once you're powerful. Ooh.
Yeah.
So, be strong enough to protect, be competent enough to provide value. That's to provide, and get enough clarity about what your identity and priority are that you can lead. And so protect, provide, preside, in the words of Ryan Mickler, that in pretty good marching orders for men today.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming here, man. How can people find you online?
mywolftribe.com. That's where I'm doing a lot of my leadership work, or Philip Folsom.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend. This was awesome.
Yeah, my man.
A lot of fun.